Welcome back to This Week in Indies, as we bring you one of our more popular sessions called the Building Series, and look to define and give perspective on maybe the most coveted of roles within a storyline, that being the love interest. So what are some fundamentals, some tropes to embrace, some do's and don'ts when it comes to crafting such a delicate and yet super important role within fiction? So today we will be building a love interest. Then C.L. Cannon will be along with indie books you might enjoy if you're a fan of Tourist Season by Brynne Weaver. Then after the Go Indie Now Minute, we epilogue with our panelists, leading by example and giving you some of their favorite moments with some of their favorite love interests within their own fiction. So now's the time as we swoon and sweep you off your feet, as we bring you another wonderful edition of This Week in Indies with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody, and welcome to This Week in Indies. I am indeed Joe Compton, and welcome to the show. Greetings and salutations. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We really appreciate you being here, and we're going to do our first build series for the year, or for this season. We've been doing these periodically over the course of the last year, and so it's been pretty successful. And so, we're coming up with different ways to do this, and I've got a really great panel to talk about love interests today. But first and foremost, I want to let everybody know that if you are wanting to support the show, the best way to do so right now is to send a star to let our hosts and producers know how much you appreciate what they do here at Go Indie Now. And every time you contribute, you get entered into our season-ending gift card package, which is one lucky winner will win a $25 Amazon gift card and a $25 either Bandcamp gift card or drive-through RPG gift card, depending on which one you prefer. If you prefer indie music or you prefer indie gaming, you can choose one or the other. And then also you'll be able to get a t-shirt or a mug and some ebooks and maybe some other swag down the road. But that is super important. So help everybody out and let everybody know how much you appreciate what they're doing. Also, we're doing QR codes with the Epilogue this year. So that's a great way to get a book from what you're about to hear from our panelists here and a little bit later on in the afternoon. And that's a great way to support the artists that are here as well. So definitely do that. We'll talk more about that later. But right now, I'm just going to bring everybody on board here. If I can just get this going. There we go. There's a lovely panel. Look at this beautiful dais we have. All right. So let's go down the line and say hello. Dennis, start us off, please.
Hi, I'm Dennis M. Myers. I write science fiction in the far future. You can find all of my stuff at automatedempire.com.
Awesome. I don't know why it's not letting me solo here. Okay, let's try that. All right, Lily.
There we go. Hi, everyone. I am Lily Lucchesi. I am a USA Today bestselling author of urban fantasy and paranormal mysteries, and I also write dark romance as S.L. Sinclair and softer romance as Samantha Calcott.
Awesome. Welcome. Sarah?
Make sure my mic is on. Hello. Hi. My name is Sarah. I write under S.G. Tosh, and I write contemporary gothic fantasy and paranormal adventure. You can find all of my stuff at sgtosh.com.
Awesome. Ariel?
Hi, I'm Ariel Dawn. I'm primarily known for my Monsters of Ashwood series, but I write a little bit of everything under the sun, from urban fantasy to sci-fi romance to contemporary romance to male-male romance. So know a lot about love interest.
Awesome. All right, Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary. You can reach me at studiobookworks.com. I'm in Lowell, Massachusetts. My primary art is comic books, graphic novels, and I mostly aim for relationships between men.
Awesome. Welcome all. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And I realized that I went out of order there, but whatever. It's chaos here today, this week in Indies. So We'll say hello to all of the chaotic people out there. Miss Stewart is always out there. Dennis is breaking the third wall. With you, Myers is here. Nice to see you, my friend. And then Sean Hillman's here. Mr. Hillman, thank you for joining us. Nice to see you. And then Sean and Dennis said hello to each other. All right. So let's build us a love interest. What do you think? Okay. So let's. I'm gonna stamp this real quickly. I understand the number one attribute of having a love interest is, creating the intrigue and the element of the love part. I get that, right? But there are tropes out there that where we start off not in love, right? There's the enemies to lovers, and all these wonderful things. So that aside, what do you feel like the love interest has to exude right away? What is the number one attribute you feel like the love interest has to have for the connection to be there?
Intrigue. You have to, the other character needs to have something about the love interest that intrigues them, that makes them stop and go and look twice at them. Who is this person? I want to know them. Whether I want to know them to defeat them, if you start out as an enemies to lovers, or I want to know them, I want to keep them, as I do in my Acts of Contrition book. I want to know them, I want to work with them, as I do in Stakeout. Something that grasps not only the main character but the reader as well, because the reader is going to be in that main character's point of view. So why should the reader love that love interest? The same reason the main character is going to love them eventually is the same reason that the reader should first have their interest piqued.
I was gonna say for me, it's a little bit of the intrigue, but more or less like a personality clash or a personality like alignment, where a lot of times I tend to have characters who their personalities clash right away. And so that it doesn't always end up as an enemies to lovers thing, but it's always like there's a visceral reaction to, like, they say something that the other person doesn't agree with, or it just irks them. So for me, some of it is the dialogue up front, especially, if the characters are meeting immediately, if you have that immediate meet cute or whatever. I feel like that dialogue has to be there, not necessarily spicy, but like to show that there's some sort of banter, or that there's some sort of connection beyond the, okay, this person's annoying, or okay, this person's just irritating me. It's there's something else there.
Nice.
I find that forced proximity is one of the ways that most of my stories end up with them together, whether it be because a annoying cousin throws them together, or because they're war buddies. So I have different levels of love interests, but generally speaking, it's forced proximity.
A very popular trope amongst the love interests. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
I was going to say the same thing. And for mine, like, kind of going back, because the two series I've written, one is more friends to lovers, and the other one is definitely an enemies to lovers, but both share this thing of they work together. So it's almost like workplace romance, which is, I guess, sort of a forced proximity, but like a very low level kind of one. But that's one of my favorite tropes too.
How for you, Dennis?
In my series, none of the love stories are the primary story, but I have at least 3 different new romances that form, and they're all different. I have, 2 people who are on vacation together and they meet and there's a mutual attraction. There's the young woman who is annoying and in the way of the Marines, and the Marines try to get her out of the way, and then there's that friction between them that grows into something else. And then there's the one where it's 2 people who are extremely smart who become more attracted to each other's minds than anything else, and that grows over time. Most recently, my new book coming out soon, Secret of the Ombax, I was able to do a romance between aliens,
Oh, nice.
and that is very subtle and very interesting to do.
Yeah, the annoying woman is very interesting because it's like, wow, that turned into a romance. That's pretty impressive.
There she is on the cover. Guess what her
Y'all,
relationship with the Marines turned out to be?
nice. Y'all like to make your love interests work. It sounds like it looks like it sounds like it's not going to be easy for the love interest to make it through what you all put them through. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
not easy at all. Especially in my case, this woman's story starts off very brutally in the first book.
Mm,
And then the next 3 books is her on her journey of recovery. The romance is tacked onto that in a natural way.
yeah.
But yeah, I beat
So,
her up
so
first.
so for that aspect of it, is it you? I would imagine you have to have some sort of backstory or some sort of way of interweaving their story into the main story in a lot of respects. Uh, talk about that careful balance because that can get away from you really fast. You could all of a sudden be writing that backstory, and then that's changes the entirety of the story that you're trying to focus on. So, how do you balance that aspect of it to keep the love interest kind of either I don't want to say at bay or in the background because that's not fair, but it is not the main story you're telling unless it is the main story you're telling. But for the most part, a love interest is usually the cherry on the sundae, right? It's usually the it's not I'm getting to this to get to this kind of aspect, right? So I'm curious how that
Yeah.
balance is for the backstory aspect.
Yeah, for me, it's more the cherry on top, the whipped cream, the hand. I mean, it's the extra. But I base all of my characters on people I know. My life experiences. So a lot of these situations are situations that I've either been through or I know people who have gone through them.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I just try to keep it real, and I'm focused on what the story is, what's happening in the story, and as a consequence, this also happens.
Yeah, for Stakeout, for the Paranormal Detective series, Stakeout was going to be a standalone. The romance was going to turn into a tragedy. It was going to be a minor subplot, a distraction for Danny, who Danny is supposed to be the main character. Throughout the rest of the series, readers know Angelica is the main character. Danny just served as the plot device to introduce her in book 1 because we needed to start with him.
Hmm.
But their romance was not supposed to really happen. There was supposed to be one hot scene and then, like I said, a tragic ending, one book, that's it. So as I'm developing the character, it's like, oh, he really fell in love with her. There is this huge backstory that when I originally realized there was going to be more books, I deleted the ending and I rewrote the ending, which is what gave them enough of their backstory to keep it going. But the backstory winds up becoming more and more relevant with each paranormal crime they're investigating. So I tried to weave in their pasts and that story to push the main plot. Because again, this was not meant to be a romance, but their romance kept wanting to push forward so much. And they're very volatile. It's a very volatile relationship for the first few books. So it was interesting to have to balance the two of them and all of those feelings along with, okay, guys, we can't focus on this. You have people to save. You have humans to save right now. You have monsters to kill.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Lily, but it also is a catalyst for more of Angelica than you originally planned to have. Am I right about that?
Yes. And yeah, Angelica was, I mean, I guess I can say the original ending. Angelica was originally the villain. She was going to wind up having fooled him and hoodwinked him the whole time. And there was going to be, just carnage at the end. So what winds up happening is the complete opposite. And it's, the catalyst to bring her in and show who she is and what changes her. It is Danny's love for her in book 2. Miranda's right. Danny's love for Angelica changes her and changes the whole landscape of her entire world and the entire series for the next 6 books.
So I'm going to jump in and say one of the reasons I picked Lost Souls to feature today when we're talking about love interest is because while I do write a lot of romances where romance is like the front focal point, Lost Souls, it's kind of not necessarily the focal point, but it's like an additional, like plot in there. So like the very first book, Heaven Knows, there isn't much romance going on, but there is a lot of backstory, right, to set up for that romance. And so even though that romance is not the focal point is that you have an angel and a demon who have to work together to help a teenager find her body so that she can live. So while doing that, you have to have obviously some backstory to be able to lead into that romance, even if it is not the focal point. So I feel like for, some of those, it's just a case of, okay, well, this is the next book, like Dennis was saying in the chat, and like in the case of Forevermore, I wrote the first Forevermore book. It was a romance, but it was very light. And as I was writing it, I had these characters who had this backstory, and it was like, okay, I could get lost in this, or I could tell this story. Why don't we tell this story separately as its own series? And that's how the Forevermore world came about. So that all those different, prequels or all those different historical tales that led into the main series, they had their own. So I didn't have to like in each individual book be like, well, Diedrich did this and Rose did that, and this happened 20,000 years ago. You know what I mean? So it was like one of those things where the stories, the backstories had their own series. And then we had the layer of the second series. But in a case of like Lost Souls, it was more so the first book was the setup with those backstories that were going to lead into not just the romance between Ender and Valerie, but how they were going to deal with Mercy as well. So,
but you knew that you had to interject that into the second book because you can't leave your audience on the hook for very long, right?
There was just enough in Heaven Knows that and it was that banter that of like, okay, he's a demon and I don't want anything to do with him, and he's like a hoity-toity angel, you know what I mean? So there was like, it was there, but they weren't, it doesn't really start to like come up until the second book, and then the third book is when they get together. I'll just tell you that.
Spoiler alert, everybody.
Yeah.
Mary, you might be the lone exception here because that is the focal point is the romance, but but the pursuit is very interesting too.
Well, Happily Ever After is the reason behind romance stories. You can't sell them without having the Happily Ever After. But this is also the reason why a lot of us do it in as independent published books, as opposed to trying to go through an agent, because the agents are only looking for books that fit on these 7 kinds of shelves, period. They only want something that's happily ever after romance, or they only want science fiction, or they only want, so there's these onlys, and you have to go into a bookstore and see what the shelves are, and that's what you have to aim for. So I think that being independent allows us a little more leeway on how we look at our characters, find the story, and then decide if it's a happily ever after, or if it's a happy for now, or if it has really nothing to do with the story itself.
How about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So I wrote Death by Misadventure, which is the series that has the most sort of forward romance in it that I have right now. I wrote it because I'm a big fan of like Lady Sleuth mysteries. But like those always have this very like, they have the banter, they have the chemistry, but they never go anywhere for like 15 books. And it's just like, oh my God, this is so fun. Like I've fully stopped reading series I love simply because I'm like, I can't take this. Like you're just not going to ever get anywhere.
Unless
wait
they're
until you're
old
done
ladies. Unless they're old ladies.
Really?
Old ladies don't have to ever have any romance.
That's true. But anyway, so I've stopped reading series that I like the mystery of just because the romance is so frustrating. So I wrote Death by Misadventure in part because I was like, I want that sort of banter. I want the kind of upright British hero, male love interest, but I want it to actually go somewhere, like with a little bit of like steam, open door romance. So that's why I wrote it. And it is like, I'll be honest with you, it's been a challenge to kind of try to fit it on a shelf somewhere because a lot of urban fantasy doesn't have that. Some does, not all of it. And then, it's because it's sort of a forbidden romance. It doesn't end necessarily it doesn't end with a happily ever after. I'll just say that and leave it at that. But but at the same time, the romance is a B storyline, but it's a pretty even split, and you can see the romance kind of take more of the center as the series goes on. So, which I like reading books like that. But yeah, it's hard to get it. I would imagine I never tried to take it to an agent, but I would imagine if I did, they'd be like, I don't know how to sell this, but people read it. So that's fine with me.
If I can plug in on that, with Stakeout, when I first published it in 2015, I had one of my ARC readers who did have, agents that I could have contacted through him. He came back to me and he said, you should do this instead of urban fantasy. This should be paranormal romance. The romance should be more forward. I'm like, that's not the story. I know an agent would not take, Stakeout got rejected a lot. It got rejected a lot. It was originally with a small press publisher who had very good distribution, but the rejections I got were insane because it didn't have enough romance forward. Yeah. It was not straight urban fantasy, and urban fantasy romance was still very new at the time. So yeah, it's very, very difficult. And that's why we stay indie. And thankfully, small bookstores or local Barnes and Nobles do want to carry us these days.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for my next question, which is, the subtlety of the love interest, right? It's become more and more veiled as we have been able to produce books with multiple genres or cross genres and things like that. But for the audience member, like the frustration aspect that you were talking about, Sarah, part of the frustration aspect is that there's never a defined attribute to the love interest. That it's just the chemistry that you see between the characters that as an audience member you go, oh yeah, they're hooking up, or that's got to happen, right? But so to get there, I'm curious, how you feel about attraction versus, how you feel about attraction versus physical versus emotional versus mental. Do you lean toward one aspect of the other, or do you feel like it could be a combination? Do you feel like you can subtly, create that chemistry that the audience feels? How what is it for the love interest that sparks it? You feel like you utilize to spark it? Is it the physical elements? Is it the emotional elements? Is it the intellectual elements? What elements do you find are best to kind of give that spark to the audience?
Well, for me, when I write Mansell Sinclair books, those are straight up romance, and then they have something else with it. It's mostly dark romance. It's taboo romance. It's not, there's Stockholm Syndrome. There's a lot of elements to it that make it not traditional, but those always start physical. They always start physical, and then the characters grow from physical lust to actual love. There's always some sort of love. Like I said, whether it's a Stockholm Syndrome love or whether it's a natural love that develops, there's always one or the other. But when it comes to my secondary romance, like in Paranormal Detective series, even in the Paige Papillon series, because she's asexual, in Stakeout, Danny is demisexual, and he does not realize what that is. That wasn't really a thing when he was younger. He's in his mid-40s by the time the series starts. That's not something, he heard about. So it starts like he does have a physical attraction to Angelica when he meets her because she is gorgeous. But even the scene that I sent in, it's when he watches her fight. And while that's still an element of physical, he's watching her do these practice fights, and he's just mesmerized by her grace and by the way that she behaves while she's in the zone. It's something that's very, very different from the physical, because for him, physical isn't enough. And I think that's also something different when you're writing queer characters. You know, queer love is a little bit different than what you might normally find in your very typical straight romances. Not saying like, oh, we love differently, because I mean, I'm going to fall in love with a woman the same way I'm going to fall in love with a man or non-binary person, but certain elements of queer, like demisexual, you're going to find something very different. So every approach you have to take as a writer really does boil down to the character and how that feels.
Can I ask a follow-up for that? I'm curious where it starts for you. Does it start with the love interest? Do you put that element into the love interest, or do you put that element into your main character that brings it out of the love interest?
I put the element into the love interest that brings it out of the main character. I want the love interest. If the love interest is secondary, which is what Angelica started as, which is, again, very amusing how she ended up. But I want the love interest to elevate that main character and give that main character growth, whether that growth is at work, whether that growth is emotional for, figuring out how it is to fall in love, whatever that growth is, the love interest has to facilitate that. They can't just be there for eye candy.
So for SL Sinclair, it's big breasts and six-pack abs, basically.
It's not really six-pack abs, but it is an element of beauty, and like it. I kind of like to do the innocent ingenue younger heroine with the older man, and then usually the younger heroine winds up growing.
I had to kind of follow up with what Lily was saying, and just that I think it really does boil down to the character and who the character is, like at their roots. Because if you know who the character is at their roots, then you know how they're going to fall in love with somebody. You know how they're going to react to certain things. In the case that I have with Lost Souls, I knew from the get-go that I wanted there to be a romance between the angel and the demon, right? But I had to kind of figure out who both of them were separately, apart from each other, to know how to put them together to play off of one another. A really good example would be Ava and Cass from my Forevermore series, my Ava Crowley series, where, I have, in a sense, all this backstory, because as I mentioned, I have prequels and things like that. But I have all this backstory, and I know kind of who Ava is at the core of herself. So I know, how she's going to react to certain people. And so I know how to play off of that same thing with Cassius, where their attraction isn't immediately physical. Some of it is, but it's an instance there because it's vampires. So there's a physical connection bound by their blood, but there's also a mental connection too before that happens as well. And a lot of my characters, it really just kind of depends on who they are. Some are more physical characters than others. Some are more mental characters than others. And some are more guarded than others. So I think it really just kind of boils down to, for me, it's a mix of all three. It's a mix of a little bit of physical attraction, a mix of mental attraction, and an emotional context. I have some characters who have very emotional responses up front, like Valerie has with Endor. But then I have other characters who it's much more nuanced, and it's not as emotional up front. It's more, physical up front. So I think it really does depend on the character, but most of it depends on who the character is at their roots before they're with somebody else.
My follow-up for you is the angel and devil thing. The devil thing is the bad boy kind of darkness. Everybody loves the darkness and kind of intrigue. And then the angel's the soft, beautiful, angelic, looking. Do you play off of that a lot? Is that something that helps the attraction?
So for me, I like to push things in the opposite direction. I love to play with the idea of like, what is good? What is evil? Who is the monster? That's like one of my things that I always do. So while on the outside, Ender is very much, he's a demon. He's working in Hell's admissions department. And he hates his job, and his hell very much resembles Earth for certain reasons. And Valerie is that very, she is that very soft, very sweet, typical angel who basically followed the law of the Lord until she died and didn't get to live her life. So, you know, they are those characters, but they're also flipped. So when you see, you know, when you see Endor and you start to get to know him, he's like, I just want to do this because whatever, and I'm making this choice. It's not necessarily, you know, the choice that you think a demon would make. Or when you see Valerie attempt to steal a wallet because she's never done that, and so now she wants to be bad, you know, like I love to play with that kind of stuff too. So I love to use the tropes and the things that are defined, but then I like to flip them on their head too. So
yeah, Valerie's like listening to Endor, and Endor's like, you know, telling her something about the world, and she's like, yeah, shut up, just open your shirt.
yeah, pretty much. It's very fun because I love playing off stuff like that, where it's like, you know, there is the physical attraction there. They obviously feel that, but they also are like, no, God, no. And then, yes, God, yes.
You know, if I could just build on that,
Yeah.
I'm very much a character-driven writer. So for me, you know, the character comes first, and different characters have different preferences. Even so much so that near the end of my first series in Stolen Dreams, two characters were both leading efforts to acquire this third party. And during the course of events, one character shows up and she's got this high level, you know, like the administrator's suite, and it's all decked out. And the other guy shows up, you know, in a skiff that's really fast, and he's got to sleep there, and it's uncomfortable. And she offers him, you know, come up and stay in the suite with me. Well, these two characters are both, you know, single and good looking, and there's wine involved. So that hookup came just so naturally. And then later it added a complication I wasn't expecting that I really enjoyed playing with.
That's awesome. So you kind of use forced proximity to kind of push that boundary and the attraction. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Sarah, Mary?
Yeah, I can speak on forced proximity for sure, because that was the beginning of Misadventure, and kind of talking about the whole like playing with what is good, what is evil. So that definitely started as like, I think part of it was definitely just circumstance, because Adina is a assassin who gets pulled in to basically magic jail. She's a magical assassin by her love interest, Levi, and he's a cop, and they think she killed someone, and she says she didn't, so they're forced to work together. He's trying to prove that she's guilty. She's trying to prove that she's innocent. And like at the beginning, she even makes a comment about like, he's not that hot. Like he's, you know, he's fine, but whatever. And as the time goes on, they're bound magically. And, you know, there's sort of this like, oh, is it the magical bond making them get closer, or is it real? Like there's that kind of question. But as time goes on, it's, you know, talking about like what your character kind of is from the beginning and how they change through the story. An assassin obviously works alone, and then, you know, being forced to work with someone, she not only like being forced to work with anyone would be difficult, being forced to work with like this person that she's kind of heard tales of as being, you know, he's the lead inquisitor, and, you know, he's horrible and he can ruin you with, you know, just by looking at you basically. And he's heard similar things about her. She's kind of an urban legend. So that there's this like kind of Pride and Prejudice thing happening as well. And as time goes on, he becomes very much like her protector. And so it becomes this sort of like very much enemies to not friends, but kind of like, you know, partners, and then eventually the lovers. So, but it very much does not start with the physical.
I'm not a doctor or a psychologist, but I'll play one here on this show. All the love help books and all the self-help books will tell you about love. If they're going out of their way to mention how not attractive they are certainly attracted to that person. Right? So it's kind of you're playing with foreshadowing and kind of red herring there, kind of idea.
For sure, absolutely.
I love that. How about for you, Mary?
Well, I go for fluffy love stories. So this one particularly, the first date, it builds in the first chapter about how Romeo's cousin Benvolio, Benny, has appointed himself as Romeo's dating app. And so he is on the lookout for somebody who he thinks his cousin's going to fall for immediately. And so that's a built-in meet cute as a result, because that's exactly the way that Romeo and Juliet started, is a built-in meet cute. They you know, first sight, right? Whereas with me, I tried to build it so that first sight was an already existing, thanks to Benny, I know this is going to work. So that's why it ends up being a first date that goes on and on and on. And I mean, I personally find this the way I started the stories, because that's the way I met my husband, was a blind date that my sister knew the guy and said, he's okay. So I really think that this is why I aimed for that kind of start of the story. It just ended up being an easy way to build, here's an instant attraction. That said, because it's a comic book, everybody has to be a certain look.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that. I was just gonna say, because there's visuals involved.
Yes, there's visuals involved, and that gives you this extra way of telling a story that you don't have to spell out. So when you finally meet, when Romeo finally meets Julian and hasn't been told that Julian is a boy, and Julian likes to dress in costume, it adds a whole other level of unusualness to the story, but also it brings out the comedy, and that's what I was aiming for.
Nice. Awesome. All right. So hang on. We're gonna jump into the Indie Connection real quick. Take a little break here and come back and wrap up our talk a little bit about love interest, and then the panelists are going to give you some examples of that with the wonderful epilogue that we have for you here coming up. But in the meantime, we will hang on as I fumble here. All right, here's the Indie Connection, and we'll be right back, everybody.
Hey guys, CL Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. And today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Tourist Season by Brynne Weaver.
The first book I have for you is called X Marks the Stalker by K.N. Wilder. She hunts killers. He is one. Opposites attract has never been so literal. Crime journalist Oakley Novak has built her career exposing Boston's darkest secrets, but she never expected a serial killer to turn the tables and stalk her. Xander Rhodes spent weeks watching her through hidden cameras, captivated by her sharp mind and relentless drive, until she catches him red-handed and, instead of running, challenges him with a glare that could melt steel. Xander's either found his soulmate or lost his damn mind. Probably both. When Oakley recruits him for her revenge plan against the man who murdered her parents, their partnership shatters every rule of Xander's secret murder society. Now they're being hunted by both sides, the law and the shadows, while racing against time to take down the untouchable enemy who took everything from her. The second book I have for you is called The Couple That Slays Together by Lisa Packer. Vesper Lane audits risk for a living. Clipboards, checklists, zero chaos. Cal Bennett lives for the spotlight. Sleight of hand, misdirection, pure chaos. They should have never met, let alone reach for the same target on the same night. When a philanthropist's safety index starts turning real crimes into public accidents, Vesper and Cal do what they do best, quietly fix what's broken. Their rulebook is simple: no collateral damage, no panic, no witnesses, and definitely no falling in love. Then a detective with a perfect poker face closes in. A billionaire with a camera-ready smile declares war, and copycat accidents start landing at their feet. To clear their names and crash the citywide rollout, This unlikely pair will stage alibis, outwit cameras, and turn spectacle into evidence, one confetti cannon and safety cone at a time. Packed with banter, oops heists, near misses, and off-page takedowns, the couple that slays together is a dark, funny romantic thriller about two morally gray do-gooders who make murder look like an accident and love look inevitable. The next book I have for you is called Sinner's Retreat by Lauren Beale. Love can be a mood killer. Tindra. When I'm invited to the coveted Sinner's Retreat, I want just one man on the attendee list, my brother's killer, the abattoir Adonis. On the flight over, my hot, nerdy seatmate gives layover a whole new meaning. But when he turns up at a boarding the next day, I'm left breathless. This means he's a killer too. And our one-night stand just turned into a multi-day affair. Ezra. Never meet your hero. You might realize you killed her brother. On the plane to the island, I discover that I and the woman I slept with last night share some macabre hobbies. I'm ecstatic until she explains why she's attending the retreat. To find me. Keeping Kendra at arm's length proves harder than I expected, especially when I catch feelings. But lying to her might be even worse than telling the truth. The next book I have for you is called Killer in the Sheets by Rose Chase. If only our secrets could stay buried like dead bodies. My stagnant life finally moves in the right direction after finding my match in Julian Smith. I write twisted fairy tales for a living, but never get the chance to live my own story until I matched with Julian through an app that paired people based on their internet history. The flashing red signs are right in my face, but I blissfully ignore them. I can finally be weird and free without judgment, something I never could do growing up. Then, when Julian feeds my passions, I can't ever leave. Thing is, not all fairy tales are perfect. Something I find out when the edge to Julian's eyes becomes sharper than a blade and pierces me. I know I need to run, but can I? More importantly, do I even want to run? And the last book I have for you is called Dolls and Daggers by D.L. Darby. Sometimes monsters are just broken people, hiding their scars from a world that has hurt them. Dove Caraway has two lives. By day, she's the bubbly, pink-clad media journalist who writes sensational stories about a vigilante serial killer. By night, she becomes the baby doll killer, an avenger with a flair for punishing the worst of humanity, men who prey on children. But her most formidable challenge isn't a criminal. It's her insufferably charming work rival. Renly Campbell is the perfect gentleman to everyone but Dove, the one person who grates on his nerves with her sunshine act. But Renly's secrets are darker than the articles they write, and when Dove unburies the truths he's hiding, she finds herself drawn to him in ways she never expected. When their battle of wits escalates into something that hits too close to home, Dove steps into his world as her deadly alter ego, intending to terrify him into backing off. As Renly pieces together who she really is, their rivalry turns into a fiery connection that neither can deny. Secrets this dark have a way of coming to light, and soon they will have to decide whether their love is strong enough to survive the shadows or shatter under the weight of their haunted past.
Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye.
Thanks to Steel Can for those awesome books. You can go check those out. And each and every week. It's spooky month here, so another spooky book coming for you next week, and that'll be awesome. Next week we'll talk a little bit more about next in a little bit, but for now let's continue our conversation a little bit here. So I'm curious, oftentimes what happens with the love interest is the love interest starts to take over the story a little bit, or take over the reader's perspective a little bit. And so I'm curious how you curtail that, or do you just feed into it and just let it happen? I mean, obviously we've talked about examples of where stories have changed because of the love interest and things like that. But I am curious from your perspectives, and based on how you write too, because a lot of us write where the characters talk to us and then they say, hey, no, I want to be more in the story, right? Mm-hmm. But also, I'm, when you do find that, is, that happy accident, or maybe, you're pissed off that it happened. I don't know, either way. But do you want to lean more into it than you normally do, how much do you have to exhibit your own discipline to keep the love interest kind of tempered down and remain to the story?
Well, for the Paranormal Detective series, as I mentioned, Angelica does become the main character, but it has nothing to do with the fact that she's the love interest.
Mm-hmm.
With the Paranormal Detectives, their bond, her and Danny's bond, could be friendship, could be coworkers, whatever would be a strong bond would work. She doesn't have to be the love interest. They don't have to fall in love. That's the thing. My readers rooted for them, of course, because again, it was very volatile, on again, off again for the first few books. But as she became the primary main character and Danny kind of fell back to being a secondary POV a little bit, it was very natural and had to do with the main plot. It wasn't because she was the love interest. It was because, she's talking to me now. She's the main character. Danny was just the catalyst to introduce her. That's how we all had to meet her, including me. She was not the first character I dreamt of. The first character I dreamt of was Danny. And actually his partner and this is not a big spoiler because his partner who dies in the first book, they were the characters I thought of. The villain was the character. Angelica came in very much later, and I realized I had to meet her through Danny the same way the readers did in order for everyone to realize, oh, this is Angelica's story. This is her life. This is her destiny. This is all of the things that are happening are because of her. Danny's at first he's just an unwilling participant. Then he winds up just being, willing and by her side. But it does seem to switch if you weren't paying attention completely to the main plot. It would seem like it switches where she's the main character. He becomes a secondary love interest. But again, the love doesn't matter. It's as long as they had some sort of bond, the rest of the plots would have worked. It just so happens that they are madly in love and annoyed the hell out of me while I was writing them.
Because in my books, in my first series, I'm using multiple points of view. I was able to do various levels of that. Some of the main characters, the point of view is their point of view. The relationship is a side thing that's going on. But for one particular one, and this is the one on the cover of Broken Trust, this is Deborah. Deborah is not a point of view character. Her story is being told through the eyes of the Marine she meets, Ted Becker. And so I was able to, she takes over the story, but it's intentional. It's because I don't want the reader to actually know what's going on with her, because there's more going on under the surface. I didn't want to go into, her point of view and how she had been affected by what happened in the first book. But there are clues. And the only point where you get her point of view is very briefly at the end of the second book, which leads to confirming what's going on with her. And it's part of her story. And I just found it was more effective to tell her story from somebody else's point of view because he's learning.
That sounds really cool.
I think for me, I think you always have to kind of balance, where you want to see the characters go or where the characters are leading you with, to an extent, what the readers want to see too, right? So I think a really good example for me would be when I wrote In the Blood, which was technically the second book in the Forevermore series. Eventually it got pulled because it's going to be part of the Ava series. But when I wrote In the Blood, I had all this backstory for Ava and Cass, right? And then I went and then I wrote the Ava Crowley series, and I knew that there was going to be a character ahead of time, Dallas. He was from the other book too. It's like I knew that there was going to be some history with him and Ava, that there was going to have to be some stuff going on, right? And I wrote Dallas to be like the jerk. I wrote him to be the jerk, and you weren't supposed to like him, but yet everybody loved him. And they all loved him with Ava. And obviously it was supposed to be a triangle from the get-go. So, that kind of worked in my favor. But as I was writing it, I was like, I don't understand why people like this man. They're not supposed to like him. And, so there was a little bit of like, I kind of had to hone what the readers did want to see that. Even though we know that Ava and Cass are like it. they still wanted to see that. So I still had to kind of write that a little bit, right? But I had to find a balance between writing that because it was what they wanted to see and it was what I wanted to write. So I had to kind of find, like, you know, some sort of connection to Dallas myself. And then as the books go, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but some things happen. And then I was later surprised at how they panned out for Dallas too, because I didn't initially like him, but everybody else liked him. And so as I wrote Dallas, I started to kind of feel a little bit more of a connection with him. So I was able to kind of gel that together and give him an arc that was suitable for him, but that also works out well for Ava. So I do think sometimes it is a fine balance between, you know, figuring out where the characters are going, you know, where you want them to go, but also where everybody wants to see them go too.
Nice. Mary, Sarah?
So I think in my case, I definitely kind of let them take over the story with the romance. But it also made sense because I kind of conceived it as a workplace romance from the beginning, and I didn't mind that that was going to happen. Also, I think what helps in my case is whether or not this is a good practice is they do, you know, they work together through the whole series. They hook up in the first book, though, so it's not this, which was intentional and what I conceived from the beginning. So they do have to kind of deal with that tension the entire time. Also, given the fact that, like, Levi is in a position that's he is not supposed to fall in love with anybody. So that kind of creates that tension too. So they both become very good at compartmentalizing. In fact, there's a line in book 3 where Adina, like, they're in a conflict and the line is "work now, fall apart later." And that's very true for like the entire story, where it's just, and that's kind of just a cue to the reader of like, okay, we're going to deal with this. You're going to get this resolution that you want. Maybe it's what you want, but you'll get a resolution to this, but we're going to do story now. And that's, you know, just kind of a way that I found was natural to handle kind of the balance of the two.
Thanks. Sorry. Harry, you want to chime in?
I am addicted to MM romance. That's what I read almost intentionally, only. And the reason I do is because I find that when it's two men making decisions, you don't get that same you don't get the feeling that somebody's job or somebody's adventure or somebody's life has to take the back seat to the other person's. And that is, to me, unfortunate part of many of the romance stories that are heterosexual. Homosexual ones almost always have a lot of conversation about what are we going to do next? How is it going to affect both of us? And so forth. The only other thing that I'll say about almost all romances that I try to really avoid is not bringing in anybody else into the story. In First Date, we get to meet cousins, mothers and dads, both sides. I feel that when we limit the romance to just the two people that you're talking about, it really limits the story. And that's why I think that you guys are talking about your stories aren't romances, but they are in a certain way. It's because you're giving more value to the story than just the romance. And I think that's what is a better build for a story that is being missed by the agents and the business side of this business, the people who buy for the big five. They're missing the boat when they think that it's only about the happily ever after, when it's really important that the story be just as good, if not better.
And when you're writing straight romance, the side characters are so vitally important, especially if the characters don't get together right away, let's say you have a slow burn, those side characters are very important to facilitate that slow burn, to facilitate them the getting together, because I have those too. I have the friends to lovers. In my queer romances especially, everyone's got that friend or friend group, because again, that's what it's like in reality. We're usually in a big friend group, and you have to build on that. And it doesn't necessarily mean those secondary characters are going to get another story, because that's a lot of what trad publishing wants. They want that, oh, you can give us more with this. No, sometimes the secondaries just exist for that primary love story.
Nice. All right, real quickly, because we're running against it here a little bit, and it's all my fault. Are there certain things you won't do for a love interest that maybe an audience might demand, or you see done a lot? Is there something you will not do, period, when it comes to creating your love interest?
Yeah,
No.
absolutely. For me, because my love stories are secondary to the actual plot, I'm not going to give every character a happy ending just because happy endings are the thing for romances. Sometimes romances can be, really intense and good and wonderful, and something happens that stops it cold.
Yeah.
Like somebody has to choose duty over the romance, or somebody dies. What happens to the character that's left, and how are they affected? So I like exploring those things.
Yes.
I think the only thing that I won't do, and this is specifically for when I'm writing heterosexual romances, my queer romances, very different, types of characters. But for my hetero romances, I will never have the female character sacrifice something about herself. One of the things in the Paranormal Detective series, Angelica is very, very outspoken. She is loudmouthed. She is in your face. She is going to give you shit, start to finish. And she is not going to shrink herself just because Danny might be a little bit intimidated by her, which he actually winds up. That's one of the reasons he falls in love with her, is because of that intimidation. But of course, she's not going to know that, at first. So the only thing that I won't do is I won't make a character diminish herself. And that's the only line, because I don't believe in limiting what I'm writing. I have no idea what the characters are going to want.
Yeah, never is a pretty hard thing to commit to, I would say.
I
know I don't particularly like to read insta-love stories, personal preference, totally. So I don't really ever see myself writing it, but I can't say I would never do it if that's what the story if it makes sense. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think there's... Go ahead.
When I started First Date, it started out as a webtoon. And so obviously the way that you do webtoons is it's one page or one group of panels at a time.
Yeah.
And so it was building and building and building, and I was getting a fandom, and I was getting a huge fandom. And all of a sudden the fandom was very, very upset because there were no sex scenes yet. And I had to really discuss with myself, do I really want to put these erotic sex scenes out on the internet for people? Or do I want to now be a published writer and make it so that they have to pay for those sex scenes, right?
Nice. Good choice.
And that is where I ended up being with Kindle KDP. Big mistake. I will tell everybody, don't ever do that. Don't let yourself be talked into that. If you need to do independent, there's many better ways to do it. But I did finally go with that demand of my fandom, and I am glad I did. But I also know that I had to go back and expurgate the entire book because of what I let the fandom talk me into.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything I wouldn't necessarily do, just because I follow my characters so blindly. Like, they lead so well. There are definitely things that I don't necessarily like to read, or things that I don't, I'm not particularly keen on writing. But if it feels genuine to a character, like, I will do it. I think a really good example of that is Jade Hollow in my Shifters of Starfall Creek series. There was some stuff going on with Jade, which it's a reverse harem series, so she is a female alpha. So there was some stuff that was going on, but I'm not going to give spoilers about, but it was kind of hard to write because it wasn't stuff that I normally write. But at the same time, it was like, it was so fitting for her. And it was so fitting for her arc that it was like, okay, this may be something that I'm not like the best at writing or that I'm not like super comfortable with, but this is what Jade wants and this is what Jade needs. So I ended up writing it, and it still continues to be one of my favorite arcs that I've ever written. Dallas was also the same way. As again, I mentioned, I have a love-hate relationship with Dallas. And so writing his arc was not something that, you know, it wasn't something that I was really great at or that I would normally write. But I was like, well, this is what Dallas needs. This is what's going to be closure for him. So we're going to write that. So I would never say that there's like something that like I won't do, because as soon as I say it, I'll write it. So
Nice. All right. Well, there you all have it. We built a love interest today, and I hope that this was helpful for you if you're struggling with that aspect of your writing, or if you're wanted just to be reaffirmed that being crazy is great and doing different things is great. So it all works, and it all works. So the love interest is a very nuanced. It's a lot more subtlety and nuance than it has been in the past, but also being direct and just going for the hotness and the sluttiness and all the wonderfulness of romance is just as beautiful. So all of that works. Before we move on to hear some examples of how it works so well, we have what's going on here going now this week. We do have some things going on, including Monday night. We're going to have a new Saving the Seat episode. You can see the movies that Brian and I have talked about, and you'll be able to hear about them, and then click on the QR code and figure out if you want to watch those movies or not. We'll tell you all about those on Monday night. That will premiere at 8 p.m. Eastern on Monday night. And then Tuesday night, it's Brian Tan and Joe Compton week here at Going In Now. But Mr. Brian Tan will be the guest of Juliet Rose for First Time for Everything on season 3. It'll be 8 p.m. Eastern. I want to make a quick note on First Time for Everything from going forward from after this episode. It will be moved to 8:30 Eastern going forward. This will be the last time it'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern, but it will be at 8 p.m. Eastern this time. So you can check that out. Brian Tan, that should be an awesome episode. You'll hear Brian's story and how he got into publishing and writing and all of that wonderful things. And then later on in the week, Brian and I are back together for Working the Indies, our independent wrestling show where we're talking about in this episode, who is the face of the independents right now? Who is going to take the mantle and run with it and be the quarterback, so to speak, of the independents? And it took us about a month and a half to marinate on it, but we finally did decide to put some thoughts together about Hulk Hogan and his impact on wrestling and the independents, and especially, and it's part of this episode. So you'll be able to hear what we think. Not all of it's positive. Just be aware of that. And we don't want to speak ill of the dead, but there are some things that we do talk about that are important to note when it comes along with a polarizing figure like Hulk Hogan. But that is going to happen on Friday or Saturday. It's going to drop one of those days, just depending on when I can get it done. And I'll be the reason why it's going to be difficult to gauge when it will happen is because I will be at Multiverse this weekend, starting on Thursday. Multiverse convention starts, and I'll be there Thursday through Sunday. And as always, as is the case, next Sunday, This Week in Indies will be live from the Multiverse Studio 42 studios that they have there for podcasters. And Sean and I will be there, and along with special guests, whoever drops in and says hello. We usually have 3 or 4 people. Bob Magoo, probably Vanessa, whoever is there will is welcome to come join us. So if you're at Multiverse and you want to say hello to the audience, to the Going In Now audience, please come and sit down with us for a little bit and talk about Multiverse. But Sean and I will definitely be there for that. So be ready for that and enjoy that aspect of everything. Look, it's me, he says. Yes. So that'll be exciting, and we'll do that on Sunday, as always, noon Eastern. Here, it doesn't change for This Week in Indies. All right, now it's time for the wonderful, wonderful epilogue. And my butchering, as I look at some of these writings that I'm looking at, I'm already just going to apologize to all of you for mispronouncing things. Because I can see there's some names in here that I'm going to struggle with, but that's just the way it goes. All right. So I'm going to start us off with the one and only Ariel Dawn and her Lost Soul box set. The QR code is up there in the left-hand corner. So if you're interested in what I read, or interested in how not to butcher it and read it properly, you'll be able to do that by clicking on the QR code. So here we go, everybody. And what did you see? He asked, his voice low and smooth like butter. My eyelashes fluttered as I melted in his hold, searching for a way to ground myself. He swayed us back and forth, his gaze intent on mine. As he licked his lips, the motion as we rocked back and forth was like a lullaby, a sense of safety blanketing me now that he was here. Which was crazy considering he was a demon. Safe and warm wasn't their definition, but yet that's what I felt. That's what I felt at the moment, looking at Endor. Like no matter what happened, I could count on him to keep us safe, Mercy and I. And I wasn't sure how to feel about that. The town we're talking about, the town we're talking about, I said as I tried to hold on to the images, the words rush, excuse me. As I said, as I tried to hold on to the images, rush the words out. I saw a group of wolves, but they were human, and there was a girl Mercy's age maybe. They were arguing with one who took her. His name is Randy. Endor's gaze did not falter. His lips pursed. When I get my fucking hands on him, he growled. His eyes flashing red. The sight made his stomach flip. Did I like this? Perhaps the tequila had gotten to my brain. After all, I'd never tasted it before tonight. That'll happen with tequila. We'll get her back, Endor. I know we will, I said, my voice softly. That part where I said it will happen with tequila, that was me. Sorry, everybody. Endor's fingers grazed my back in a slow, rhythmic lines, touch soothing. Endor's fingers grazed my back in a slow, rhythmic lines to touch soothing. And then we will deliver her to her body and she will be free, he said, his dark voice full of mixed emotion. I let my hands travel up his arms, wrapping them around his neck as my breathing evened and as my muscles came back to stability. My fingers teased the edge of his hair and the nape of his neck, the texture soft and silky. Is anyone ever really free? I asked, staring into his dark eyes, unsure if I was asking him or myself. Endor leaned closer, his forehead gently touching mine. He implored me with his gaze. Freedom doesn't exist, not for us, he whispered. We are slaves to our masters. But Mercy is free because she has a choice in the matter, to live or die. His words resonated with me, but I wasn't sure we were talking about Mercy. His words settled on me as I thought about the wallet in my pocket, my deliberate attempts to use my femininity to my advantage, and the reality that in that moment I wanted to kiss this beautiful demon who made me feel things I never knew. Yeah, it has to be the tequila. Come on. Go down. Sorry. We have a choice, Endor, I said, thinking about the elixir Matthew had presented me. Then sea that could be destroyed, the sea that could be destroyed Endor and landlock him forever. All right, so I apologize very profusely, Ariel, for that terrible reading. All right.
It's all good.
for some reason, people like it. So next up, we've got Mary Dumas and her Romeo and Julian first date series, and these are kind of weirdly visually, because they're a graphic novel. So I'm just going to read the little captions in there, and you all can just check it out. I mean, you can see how stunning these visuals are, and the storyline is just as amazing. I can attest to it. I've read the whole thing, so I know. Anyway, so it says, Julian, this is a new friend of mine. So you be nice to him. I'll be back. It's probably okay if I do this here, right? Julian's grabbing, I should say, Romeo's grabbing Julian's hands, smelling them, looking at him. Good grief. You've taken this Ren Fair stuff to heart, but that was very nice. It would be pretty forward if I were to kiss you on the lips. Yes, pretty forward. But it would be hot. Yes, not. Sorry, I can't see it from the bottom there. I didn't read the last part. I can't read the last part. Sorry, it's too small for me. But anyway, here's the big kiss, everybody. So let's look at that. That's just gorgeous. Everything's gorgeous about this story. Everybody go check it out. The QR code is there, so you can go check that out. I try to do it justice, Mary. I apologize. All right. Now on to more butchering and The Death of Misadventure by S.G. Tosh. This is where I really feel I'm going to struggle. Hang on a second. Let me bring Sarah. Just dropped out, so let me bring her back in.
Hi.
All right. All right.
Do you want my help with pronunciation?
Yes, please. Sure.
Okay, so it's Breitling, Eidolon, and Canelo.
Okay.
And
All
also, if I could preface this, I just want to say that because Adina is she's basically has ghost powers. She is in this scene, but neither of the men know she's there.
Okay.
So
awesome.
Breitling lunges forward, grabs Eidolon by the soiled lapels, and throws him against the thick, soundproof doors. Eidolon cries out, but the sound dies as Breitling grabs him by the jaw with both hands and wedges his thumbs under his chin, pressing up against Eidolon's eyes, pointing to the ceiling. I'm going to give you one more chance for a straight answer. Did you or your associates have anything to do with this? An inquisitor through and through, Eidolon wheezes. He raises his right palm. I swear upon the souls of the Prime and all the members of the Presidium, I know nothing about Darius Canelo or how he ended up dead. You better be sure about that, because if I find out that anyone in this snake pit you call business had a hand in harming her, I will make it my personal mission to bring the full weight of the order down on your head. Eidolon cocks an eyebrow. Her? Him, Canelo, obviously. Despite the bead of sweat rolling down his temple, Eidolon smiles impishly. Funny, I could have sworn you said. He coughs as Breitling digs his thumbs into his muscle beneath Eidolon's tongue. You misheard me. Yeah, he chokes out, trying to swallow around the pressure. Yeah, I must have, but I didn't. For the first time since walking into glamour, I really look at Breitling's face. There's an anger, of course. What else is new? This entire situation has been a non-stop deluge of bullshit from day one, which was somehow only yesterday. Yet every time he's had it to exert power, he's been, angry, yes, but restrained, even reluctant, like it was an unpleasant but unnecessary, even reluctant, like it was unpleasant but necessary part of the job. Now it's nothing like that. This is violent, bloodthirsty. He wants to hurt this man because he may have been the one to hurt me. There we go. Everybody go check out the wonderful Death by Misadventure by S.G. Tosh. All right. And then on to Stakeout with Lily Lucchesi. This is an awesome book. Here we go. I think I can get these names. All right.
If there are any issues, just let me know, but I think you're fine.
All right. He watched Angelica do some damage to the three dummies by alternating from sword to knife to gun and then to stake. She moved quickly and nearly effortlessly, though he knows that he knows that even she had limited arm mobility in her tight jacket. But she was like a dancer, dealing with death while dazzling the eyes. Had the dummies been vampires, they would have all been dead within 10 seconds. He did the course after she did, albeit a little slower to switch his weapons. She said that was the other thing that they wanted to work on with him, his agility. With vampires, you need to move quickly. Sometimes you have less than 3 seconds between slicing their necks and stabbing their hearts, or vice versa. She said, "I thought that was pretty. I thought that I was pretty good at what I did until I saw you. Were you training since birth?" he asked as they went into the elevator to the parking garage. "Something like that," she replied vaguely, slipping her sunglasses on like some rock star. It was nighttime, but he assumed she did it for the aesthetic. He let her walk ahead of him, studying her straight-backed gaunt Angelica Cross. You become more of an enigma every day. There you go. At his stakeout, everybody, go check that book out. And before I get into the next reading, we have a very special surprise for you all, an exclusive from the one and only Mr. Dennis Myers. Do you want to introduce us to what we're about to see, Mr. Myers?
Yeah, my first series is 4 books long. It is a complete series, Rise of the Automated Empire. I am still writing in that universe, and the next book out, sometime hopefully this month, is going to be Rise of the Ombax. It takes place about 7 years later, and this is the cover reveal.
Awesome. Here you go, everybody. Exclusively on Going In Now, the cover reveal. Here we go. There you go, everybody. Pretty awesome. Congratulations, sir. I put the link in the chat for everybody, and it is also on our description page, so you can go check that out and get yourself ready to enjoy more of what Dennis is offering, including this wonderful gem, Broken Trust, everybody. So here we go. I'm going to read from Broken Trust by Dennis M. Myers, and enjoy. So it is Wednesday, October 5th, 3289, 5:15, Peng Yu Jump Space. Ted grumbled at the coffee dispenser. It grumbled back. He selected creamer and a sweetener. The bulb inflated with a swift gurgle. Ted detached it, then pushed himself back toward the lounge area. Robert paused the show. Hi there, Ted. Hi there. Ted, right? Ted nodded. You're the new engineer? New, old, returning hero, he shrugged. It's all so confusing. Ted snorted. What's your story? I was assigned to Peng Yu just before they stole the ship for that run to Endurance Halo. Being so new, they didn't know me well enough to let me into their plan. I ended up sedated in a gear locker while they did their thing. I mean, no big deal. I picked up the assignment on Ravenger, so it all worked out. But then my commanding officer refused to help Brianna, the one who brought all these big ships. Those new engineers are horrific. She was nearly killed getting there. I did what I think any decent human being would do, I went to help her. You ditched your career for a girl? Robert frowned. When you put it like that, it almost sounds corny. Ted shrugged. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. Shame about your career, though. It's the one thing I regret about transferring to Allied. Oh, how so? Part 2. The top brass at Allied don't act like brass. It's like they want a military, sort of, but they don't want to bite the bullet and create a military. Oh, said Robert. I used to be a lieutenant, but now I'm just kind of a team leader. I know Tong's people got new ranks, but no one said anything about it to us yet. Do you want to be in the military again? Ted shrugged. I guess I just want some clarification. I mean, what's my relationship to my team now? Sure, they look at me and to lead, but our contracts are all the same. I see. Has the dynamic changed any between you? That's just it. Since we transferred, we added a new recruit. Kind of. The woman we had been assigned to protect. Now, she's on my team and, well, it might be shit. Oh, wait, said Robert. The cute one with box ears? I've seen her. Complicated? Ted's face flushed. Ted's face flushed. Not yet. Robert leaned in. What happened? Nothing. Look, forget it. I mentioned it. Oh, hang on. Come on. Screen, don't grab me now. Last line. Come on. Let me get the last line. Stupid screen. Let me see if I can read it from the bottom. Robert smirked. Sure. No worries. Sorry. Boy, I was going good until that last part. All right. That's Broken Trust, everybody. Go get these wonderful books. Again, here, this is the epilogue. And one more time, this is the Lost Soul set, the QR code for Lost Soul set, box set by Ariel Dawn. Go grab it. I'll give you a second. Romeo X Julian First Date by Mary Dumas. There's the QR code. Go grab it. Death by Misadventure by S.G. Tosh. Go grab it. Awesome book. Awesome series. That's the first book in the series, correct?
That is the first book, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Everybody go grab it. And this is the fourth book in the series, Dennis? Broken Trust?
Third. It's the third book.
Third book? Okay. So this is Broken Trust by Dennis M. Myers. Go grab it. And Stakeout by Lily Lucchese. That's the QR code for that. Go grab it. And go see all these wonderful people. And where you can see them is, let's find out. Mary, start us off. Tell everybody where they can find you, please.
StudioBookworks.com.
Awesome. SG Tosh, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at sgtosh.com. And then this coming weekend, October 18th, if you're going to be in Las Vegas, which is where I live, and where the book is set, actually, I will be at the Las Vegas Book Festival at the Fifth Street School from 25.
Awesome. All right, Ariel, where can they find you, please?
Find me at www.arieldown.com. Pretty much everywhere you buy books, on every social media app and site that you can think of. And you can always find me here on Go Indie Now and also over on Continual.
Awesome. Lily, where can they find you, please?
You can find me at lilyluchesi.com, and that's where you can get links to all of my books. My ebooks are all in Kindle Unlimited, because that is also where I read as someone with a limited budget. And also, if you are an author who need your love interests fleshed out, worked on, edited, I am a professional editor with Partners in Crime Book Services. So please also feel free to come check me out, or you can send me a message right on my website, and I would love to work with you.
Awesome. All right, Dennis, where can they find you all?
You can find me at automatedempire.com. There's a link there. You can order, excuse me, you can pre-order Secret of the Ombax there through the Indiegogo campaign. And if you do, you're helping to fund the next book to come out. So
go do that, everybody. Go do that. It's awesome. You saw the cover today, and yeah, it's going to be an awesome book. Everybody go check that out. Everybody go check out what everybody's doing. And we appreciate that you come and check us out each and every week. Like I said, we got some really great stuff coming up this week, including the fact that I will be in Atlanta at the end of the week with Mr. S.M. Hillman live and in person. We will be doing yet another This Week in Indies Sunday from the Multiverse Convention in Atlanta. Well, actually, I said Peachtree City. I shouldn't call it Atlanta. But that being said, it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you all soon. Bye, everybody. Oh, be ready, Joe.